The chapel sat alone at the edge of the frontier, a tiny white building half buried in dust and silence. No music drifted from its doors, no celebratory ribbons fluttered in the wind. Only the echo of emptiness hung in the air as Clara Dawson stood before the altar in a plain blue dress she'd patched by hand. She smoothed the fabric nervously, glancing toward the road. No family came. No friends. Not a single soul to witness her wedding. Whispers carried from a few townsfolk lingering outside the chapel windows. She must be desperate. Poor thing, nobody else would have her. He ain't got a nickel to his name. Clara kept her chin high, though her hands trembled. She had nowhere else to go, nowhere to sleep, and nowhere to turn. Survival, not love, had brought her here. The chapel doors opened with a soft groan. Jonah Creed stepped inside. Tall, broad-shouldered, wrapped in a worn coat dusted from travel. His boots were muddy, his beard untrimmed, and his hat looked older than she was. Clara expected cold eyes, but instead found something gentler. Something steady and deeply tired. He carried nothing but a small leather pouch. Everything he owned in the world. The preacher muttered a few words, his voice flat, uninterested. No rings. No blessings. Just a quick ceremony so both parties could walk away equally disappointed. When it was finished, Jonah tipped his hat slightly to Clara. "Thank you," he said quietly, though she didn't know why. Outside, the townsfolk snickered. She married the poorest bachelor alive. She'll freeze up in those mountains. Clara kept walking. Jonah didn't lead her toward town. He didn't lead her toward a cabin. He didn't lead her toward anything that made sense. Instead, he turned toward the deep pines. There, hidden behind brush and rock, stood a small black carriage hitched to a powerful chestnut horse. Jonah opened the door and looked at her with unreadable calm. "We're going someplace safe," he said. "Somewhere no one can follow." Clara hesitated. A poor mountain man owning a carriage? Nothing was adding up. Clara climbed into the carriage slowly, her heart racing with questions she was too afraid to ask. Jonah took the reins, gave a soft whistle, and the horse began pulling them deeper into the forest. Tall pines swallowed the road. Sunlight vanished. The air turned colder with every mile. "Where are we going?" Clara finally asked. "North," he answered. "North where?" "You'll see." His tone wasn't threatening, but it was final. Hours passed. Snow began to fall in drifting flakes, catching in Clara's hair. Jonah kept driving, shoulders tense, eyes fixed ahead. He barely spoke, and when he did, it was only to warn her of bumps or turns. By nightfall, they reached a tiny hunting cabin tucked against a cliff wall. Smoke curled weakly from the chimney. "We'll stay here till morning," Jonah said. Clara stepped out cautiously, watching him unload a small crate from the carriage. Inside the cabin, he lit a lantern and immediately stepped aside, refusing to invade her space. He kept to the corner, clearing off a chair for her while he unrolled a thin bedroll on the floor. "You can take the cot," he said. "I'll sleep over here." "You don't have to." He held up a hand, gentle but firm. "It's yours." When she shivered, he offered his blanket too. He didn't touch her. Didn't ask anything of her. Didn't so much as glance at her longer than necessary. Clara watched him silently as he stirred the fire. If he married her to control her, why was he treating her like she was made of porcelain? When the wind howled outside, Jonah adjusted the door latch to keep it from shaking. "You're safe," he murmured. Clara didn't understand him. Not yet. But she believed him. The next morning, dawn bled soft orange across the mountaintops. Frost glimmered on the trees. Clara stepped outside to breathe the cold air and clear her restless mind. Jonah was already awake, saddling the horse. "We've got a long climb," he said. As they continued their journey, Clara finally gathered her courage. "Why did you marry me, Jonah?" He didn't look at her. "I needed someone I could trust." "You don't know me." "No," he said quietly. "But I saw the way you handled yourself in town. You didn't beg. You didn't complain. You didn't pretend." Clara blinked, confused. "That's enough reason for you to marry a stranger?" "It's more reason than most men get." Silence stretched. The trail narrowed, wind slicing through the trees. Clara wrapped her shawl tighter. At midday, they stopped near a frozen creek. Clara warmed her hands over a small fire Jonah built. After a long pause, she whispered, I didn't choose you because I loved you. I know. I chose you because I had nowhere left to go. Jonah nodded, jaw tight, eyes on the flames. I know, he repeated, but not with hurt. With understanding. Clara exhaled shakily. My parents died last winter. The school couldn't pay me anymore. The owner, he demanded things I wouldn't give. When I refused, they called me ruined. Jonah finally looked up, and Clara saw a fire behind his eyes. You ain't ruined, he said. Not even close. Clara swallowed, emotion rising in her throat. And you? She asked softly. Why live alone in the mountains? Jonah stared into the fire again. His voice dropped low. You wouldn't believe me. Try me. He took a slow breath. My family wasn't poor, he said. We were the kind of rich folks other men come after with knives. Clara froze. Jonah's eyes darkened. They killed my father for the deed to his land. Tried tucking the rest from my mama. I got her away. But we never stopped looking over our shoulders. Clara whispered. Are they still hunting you? A shadow crossed Jonah's face. Always. Clara felt the cold tighten around her chest. Jonah Creed had been many things in the rumors. Odd, silent, poor, reclusive. But she realized now none of it was true. The quiet wasn't weakness. It was armor. What happened to your mother? She asked softly. Jonah's shoulders tensed. He didn't answer right away. The fire crackled, sending sparks into the wind. Finally, he murmured. She died hiding me. Hide in our last deed. When the gang came, she wouldn't tell them where it was. She told me to run. I didn't run fast enough. Clara reached out, not touching him, just offering her presence. You've been alone since then? She whispered. Jonah nodded once. And the townsfolk think you're nothing but a mountain hermit. Jonah gave a small, humorless smile. Safer that way. The wind carried their silence for a moment. Then Clara spoke, not out of bravery but out of shared heaviness. I never thought someone like you would choose someone like me. Jonah turned to her fully for the first time since the wedding. There was no coldness, no distance, just raw truth. I didn't choose you because I needed a wife, he said. I chose you because I saw a survivor. Someone who'd stand with me, not behind me. Clara blinked hard, her throat tight. The two continued riding into the deepening pines, but the distance between them, emotional and otherwise, felt smaller. The air seemed warmer, the silence softer. By the time the sun dipped behind the ridgeline, Clara no longer felt like a stranger being dragged into a mystery. She felt like someone being welcomed into a story far bigger than she expected. The next afternoon, they reached a narrow mountain pass lined with towering pines. Snow dusted the trail, muffling their footsteps. Jonah rode ahead, eyes narrowed, scanning the treeline. Suddenly he pulled the reins tight. What is it? Clara whispered. He pointed at the ground. Fresh hoofprints. Deep. Heavy. Made by multiple horses. Clara's breath hitched. Who? Jonah didn't answer. Instead, he dismounted and motioned for her to stay still. The forest grew too quiet. No birds, no rustling brush, no wind whispering through the needles. Then Clara saw them. Dark figures shifting behind the trees. Men on horseback moving slowly, like predators waiting for the right moment. Jonah, she breathed. I see him, he murmured. He didn't lift his rifle. Didn't shout. Didn't provoke them. He stood perfectly still, body angled to shield Clara without making it obvious. The riders watched, shadows melting between branches. One raised a hand in a mocking salute. Then, just as silently as they appeared, they retreated into the woods. Clara's knees threatened to buckle. Who were they? Jonah mounted again, jaw set. The same men who killed my father. A cold twist of fear wrung Clara's stomach. Are they following us? They're deciding when to strike, Jonah said. And where? Clara placed a hand over her heart. Why bring me with you if it meant putting me in danger? Jonah looked at her with a fierce, quiet certainty. Because I'd sooner die than leave you where those town wolves could tear at you. You're safer with me. Even if danger follows. Her breath caught. Not reassurance. Not comfort. A vow. By the time twilight settled, they reached a steep incline where the trail turned dangerous. Jonah tied the horse and guided Clara up on foot, step by step, through thick snow and jutting rock. "We're close," he said. "But you need to know how to protect yourself." He knelt and opened one of the saddlebags. Inside was a revolver, well-polished, gleaming in the dying light. Clara swallowed. "Jonah, I've never shot at a person." "I hope you never have to," he said, placing the gun gently in her hands. "But fear don't stop danger. Being ready does." He positioned her hands, adjusting her wrist, fingertips warm against her skin. "Keep your elbow loose. Don't flinch at the sound. Let the weight steady you." Clara aimed at a pine stump, inhaled shakily, and squeezed the trigger. The shot echoed through the valley, scattering a flock of birds into the sky. Clara jerked back, startled. Jonah smiled faintly. "You'll get used to it." Next, he handed her a small hunting knife. "Keep this hidden. The kind of men chasing us, if they grab you, they won't expect you fightin' back." Clara's fingers tightened around the handle. "I'm not helpless." "No," Jonah said. "You're not." Then came the moment Clara didn't expect. Jonah reached into his coat and pulled out a silver locket, engraved, beautifully polished despite years of wear. "It belonged to my mama," he said. "She told me to give it only to the woman I trust most." Clara's breath froze. "Jonah, why now?" He looked down, voice softer than snow. "Because once you see what I'm about to show you, there's no going back." The trail narrowed until they reached a ledge overlooking a hidden valley. Clara gasped, hand flying to her mouth. Below them, half hidden by trees and cliffs, stood a massive stone mansion, carved into the mountainside, glowing with lantern light like a beacon in the wilderness. Clara stared at Jonah, speechless. He took a long breath and said, "Welcome home." Clara had no words. The mansion below wasn't just large. It was breathtaking. A hidden fortress of carved stone, tall windows glowing against the mountain dusk. The kind of place no one would ever expect a poor mountain man to possess. Clara's knees weakened as she whispered, "Jonah, this can't be real. It's as real as the men who'll try to take it tonight." His voice was calm, but Clara felt the tension humming under his skin. They took the final steps down the switchback trail, snow crunching underfoot. As they approached the grand doorway, Jonah unlatched two massive iron bolts and pushed open the heavy doors. Inside, Clara froze again. The interior was warm, lit, safe. A long hearth burned bright, casting golden light across polished floors, hand-carved beams, thick rugs, shelves of books, and oil portraits. It was no mansion of excess. It was a home built with care, love, and loss. "Jonah, why hide this from the world?" she whispered. "Because the world tried to take it. And they'll try again." He shut the doors behind them, bolting them tightly. As Clara ventured deeper into the great room, she noticed something. The walls weren't decorated with trophies or rifles or gaudy wealth. They were filled with tools. Practical. Necessary. Prepared. "I built this place to keep danger out," Jonah said. "But tonight, danger's coming straight for us." Clara turned sharply. "The men we saw?" Jonah nodded, jaw tight. "They want the deed." "What deed?" Jonah reached into a hidden drawer and pulled out a folded envelope sealed with wax. "This land ain't just a hideout. It's rich with gold veins underground. My father struck it by accident. Never had the chance to mine it." Clara felt the breath leave her chest. "So that's why they killed him. And why they'll kill me too if we let him." Thunder cracked outside. No, not thunder. Gunfire. Jonah rushed to the window. "They're here." Clara's blood ran cold. Outside, dark figures rode through the snow, spreading out, surrounding the mansion. Lanterns swung in their hands. Rifles glinted. "Jonah!" Clara cried. "We can barricade the windows." "Already done." He tossed her a loaded revolver. "Stay low. Keep behind the pillars. Don't shoot unless you must." Clara nodded, swallowing her fear. The siege began with a roar. Bullets smashed against the stone walls, ricocheting like angry bees. Clara ducked behind a carved column, heart pounding. Jonah stood at the top of the stairway, tall, still, unshaken, and returned precise, controlled fire through a narrow rifle slit he'd built into the masonry. Crack. Bang. Crack. He didn't waste a single shot. Outside, the attackers cursed, circling like wolves frustrated by a stronger predator. One man hurled a torch at the front door. Jonah shot at midair, embers scattering harmlessly across the snow. Clara stared in awe. How are you so calm? Jonah reloaded. Because fear don't help nobody. Keep breathin'. Keep steady. But then she heard something. Hoofbeats thundering from the side. Jonah! She screamed. A rider broke from the tree line, charging toward a side entrance Jonah had forgotten to bolt. Clara didn't think. Didn't hesitate. She raced across the floor, skidding on the rug, slamming her shoulder against the wooden door just as the attacker shoved from the other side. The crack in the door widened. A hand gripped the edge. Fingers curled inside. Clara raised her revolver and fired. The man screamed and fell back into the snow. Clara stumbled away, shaking violently but alive. Clara! Jonah sprinted over, grabbing her shoulders. Did he hurt you? She shook her head. Tears mixed with sweat. You said you wanted me to fight, she whispered. So I did. Jonah's eyes softened in a way she'd never seen. You saved our lives. But the fight wasn't over. The gang leader, broad, scarred eyes full of hatred, stepped forward from the darkness. He kicked the wounded man aside and raised his rifle. Creed, he roared. I'm talking what should have been mine 10 years ago. Jonah's jaw clenched. You'll die trying that. The leader fired. Jonah shoved Clara down, taking cover as bullets shattered glass behind them. Clara crawled behind a stone pillar, reloading with trembling hands. Jonah advanced slowly, methodically. The leader charged toward the porch, boots smashing against the snow. Jonah braced himself against the doorframe, rifle ready. Clara, breath shaking, aimed from behind a side pillar. The leader lifted his weapon. Jonah fired. The man spun back, collapsing into the snow. Silence fell. The remaining riders fled into the dark woods, leaving their fallen leader behind. Jonah stepped out into the snow, breathing hard. It's over, he murmured. Clara staggered out beside him, gripping his arm. You protected me, she whispered. Jonah shook his head. We protected each other. The storm began to break. The moon pierced the clouds. A silver glow washed over the valley, and Clara realized she wasn't afraid anymore. The next morning the world looked reborn. Fresh snow blanketed the valley in soft, unbroken white. Sunlight streamed through the pines like golden ribbons. Smoke curled gently from the mansion's chimneys. Clara stood on the balcony wrapped in a wool cloak Jonah had given her. She watched him below, chopping wood near the barn, every swing of the axe steady and strong. For the first time she understood. He wasn't hiding from life. He was building a better one, waiting for someone who believed in him. He looked up, catching her gaze. You sleep all right? He called. Clara nodded with a warm smile. First good sleep I've had in years. Jonah wiped sweat from his brow. Good. You're safe here. Clara stepped closer to the railing. Jonah, what happens now? He set down the axe, suddenly uncertain. Now? You ain't trapped. If you want to leave, I'll take you back. She shook her head immediately. No. I want to stay. I want to make this ours. Jonah froze. Clara descended the steps, snow crunching under her feet. When she reached him, she placed her hand on his chest, not timidly, but with quiet conviction. You didn't drag me here, she said softly. You saved me. From a life that never wanted me. From men who would have hurt me. From a fate I didn't deserve. Her voice trembled. And last night, you fought for me like no one ever has. Jonah swallowed hard, emotion tightening his features. You fought too, he whispered. You're braver than you think. Clara tilted her head. Maybe we make each other brave. A slow smile broke across Jonah's face. Gentle, real, brighter than the sun glinting off the snow. He leaned his forehead against hers. This place was built for two, he murmured. I just never thought I'd find the right woman to share it with. Clara's breath caught. You did, she whispered. They stood together in the snow, two survivors shaped by hardship, now bound by something stronger than fear. And behind them, the mansion doors stood open, inviting, warm, full of promise. A new life waited. A new family. A new beginning carved into the mountainside. The narrator's voice settles over the final image of the mansion glowing in the mountain sun. The Wild West ain't just gunfights and dust storms. Sometimes it's two broken souls find in the courage to build something new. something the world told him they didn't deserve. Clara thought she married a poor man with nothing to his name. But the truth was, Jonah Creed owned more than land and stone. He owned strength, loyalty, and a heart big enough to save 'em both. And maybe that's the real lesson the frontier teaches. Riches don't make a man worthy. His deeds do. If this tale spoke to your heart, ride with us again. Like the video, share your thoughts down in the dust of the comments, and subscribe for more stories carved in snow, fire, and the untamed soul of the Wild West.